Hi, everybody, and thank you for joining us on the 2021 Club Soda Global Mindful Drinking Festival. My name's Alex Walker, and I am a co-founder of Be Sober, and I have the pleasure of hosting this wonderful panel today, so thank you very much. And it's all about how can I navigate a boozy work culture. Before we get stuck in, I'd like to just go around the panel and let them introduce themselves, tell you a little bit about where their expertise lies, and that's it. So can I go to you first, Eric, please?
Sure. Thank you very much, Alex. My name is Eric Knight, and I'm the founder and master distiller of SPIRITY cocktails. We make real non-alcoholic cocktails crafted with our spirits distilled from tea for an authentic adult-like sipping experience without alcohol.
And whereabouts are you based?
US.
Over in the
So,
US.
Thank you very much. And I'm also consider myself sober. I haven't had any alcohol or cannabis since early 2018.
Oh, wow. Quite a while then. Yeah. And over to you, please, Terri.
Hi, my name is Terri. I'm a freelance commercials producer. And last year I started Not So Boring, just as a way really to share my own thoughts and experiences of sobriety within the advertising industry. And that's sort of come about since I've been just over 3 years sober now. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you. And Ellie?
Hi, nice to be here, Alex. So my name's Ellie. I'm the founder of a brand called Caleño, and we make tropical non-alcoholic spirits. We've got 2 in our range, light and zesty, designed to be paired with tonic, and dark and spicy, which goes brilliantly with ginger ale. And the reason I started a non-alcoholic drinks company was really from my own experiences. So I did dry January for the first time back in 2017 and was pretty saddened by the choice that was available when I went out to a bar with my friends and kind of wanted to change that. So here I am, kind of launched the brand 3 years ago, and the non-alcoholic industry has just kind of taken off, and there's real momentum behind it. So it's really exciting.
Yeah, I agree. I think it really is. I mean, my background before coming into kind of the sober sphere, if you like, and co-founding Be Sober was in teaching. Now, I'm going to speak on behalf of every teacher I've ever met. No, I'm 90% of the teachers I've met. It's really, really boozy. It is. You wouldn't think so, obviously, but it's a boozy thing. It's boozy when you're marking because it's a boring, long job. It's boozy at the end of term because everybody wants to go out and get sloshed. It's boozy at lunch times, believe it or not, when people are saying, should we just quickly whip for a pint? Not everywhere, and there are rules in place. But what's your experience of the workplace been like first? So who's going to go first with this one? I'm going to pick on you. Somebody doesn't speak. Go, Ellie.
I'm going to put my hand up. Only because what I didn't mention was before I started Caleño, I actually spent about 5 years working for a company that sold alcohol. So they were a drinks company, and they did sell soft drinks too, but the majority of their business was alcohol. So they sold alcohol to bars and restaurants all over the UK, still do. So that was actually my second job after uni. So I joined that company when I was probably 22, 23. So still quite young and still quite new to the world of work. And it was interesting. I mean, boozy is definitely a word for it. If you call kind of getting bottles of vodka and rum out at lunchtime and giving everyone a taster, because it was part of the work. You know, you had buyers there who had to make decisions about drinks, but then it also meant, events I was organising were drinks, alcohol events. So we would invite bartenders, bar owners, restaurant managers to come down and basically sample everything: vodka, rum, gin, wine, you name it, it was there. So those particular places, it was probably couldn't get any boozier, to be honest. So I've kind of gone from one extreme to the other because, frankly, I think I'd seen it. Bad things happen when you drink too much, frankly. I'd heard stories about Christmas parties, people get fired because they turn up, they drink too much, they overdo it because there was just so much available there, and it ends really badly. So I've seen kind of both sides of it now, and it was an interesting 4 or 5 years, but kind of decided I wanted to get out of that world, still stay in drinks, but actually make the non-alcoholic side a little bit more exciting than it currently was.
What do you think about that, Eric?
Similarly, I had a similar experience to Ellie. I moved to California in 2001 to join the wine industry, and I spent 18 years working in wine and spirits. So my experience is more on the operation side, on producing products. Distillation. I was a winemaker for a year. I did a sabbatical and learned winemaking. And alcohol was part of everyday life. I moved into a small town where I was part of a big company in a small town. All of my friends had to do with alcohol. It was very intertwined between work, play, and everything was based on alcohol. And, even reflecting back, I was a heavy drinker at the time for about 12, 13 of those years. And as a leader, I would be organizing events. I was the boozy boss. I was the one that was organizing events with people, once a month with my team, being together with other teams, working together, on wine tastings, spirits tastings. It's always a competitor tasting, always social events included alcohol, and alcohol was always the center place of those. And, I looked at it as my roles to show everybody a good time, get them all drunk, and I never really put a lot of thought into folks who weren't drinking and how they would feel about it. And I was the guy that would, invite, and I was the one that was saying, hey guys, let's stay out a little longer. And, let's go to the next bar, and hey, let's order another bottle of wine. And that was me. And like I said, not a whole lot of thought into the folks that weren't drinking and how they were feeling at the time. So I obviously have a different perspective on that now.
Yeah. I think we'll come and pick that back up in a second. We'll hear from you, Terri, if that's all right. But I think we will pick back up on that about people who aren't drink us, but also there's certain cultures, there's certain religions. So I think it's really important we pick back up on that. Terri, can we come to you before we do, please?
Yeah. I think everyone thinks the industry they work in is really boozy, don't they? Like a lot, it's like, oh, my industry's so boozy. So I work in the advertising industry, and my experience of that is that it's really boozy. And I was very much part of that for a long time. And then when I stopped, obviously, because I was starting to struggle with that, and it was affecting me in lots of different ways. But I think having become sober, you tackle that, and then you keep going to work, and you're like, oh God, now I've got to deal with all of this as well, all these situations that I just accepted as being normal and never considered having to do as someone that didn't want to drink. And so that's been something that I'm still working through that, really. Things happen all the time, and there's lots of award dues that happen in advertising, and client entertainment's big, and working late, oh, we're working late, a bottle of wine's out, that's, to keep working. Like,
I know, it's so bizarre, isn't it?
Yeah, and again, I'm saying this now because I'm on the other side, but for a long time I was in that, and I was doing it, and I was like, yes, if I'm here till whatever time, let's drink. It's very much work hard, play hard, drink your stress, and it's not that easy to work seamlessly within that when you're sober.
It's so normalized, isn't it? Like you've just said, and like picking up on the stress side of things. How many people have you seen in your workplaces? Kind of rhetorical, but just nod if you agree. Come in with hangovers and never. It's not. Nobody goes. Yeah. Nobody says anything, do they? It's just like, oh, a hangover. It's okay. What a hero. They're here. Like they're on the desk, but they're here. It is far too normalized. And what I wanted to say, and it kind of picks up on what Eric said, is I have a friend actually, and young Muslim girl, early 20s, and we were chatting the other day, weirdly, that I had this bag of alcohol-free drinks, and I'd picked up the alcohol-free Guinness, which is brand new out here. There's been a bit of a crisis with it, and then it came back, and everybody's raving about it. Anyway, this alcohol-free Guinness, and she was like, "Oh, what's that?" And I said, "Oh, it's alcohol-free Guinness," and she was very curious about what that meant in terms of, could she drink it? Was it completely alcohol-free, etc.? And we got chatting about workplace culture, and she said she'd found it really difficult in an office environment to just fit in. One, she'd found it difficult anyway as a young Muslim woman coming into the workplace. But then what added to that was the isolation that she felt when she couldn't partake or wouldn't partake in boozy events. Something needs to change, yeah?
Yeah, definitely.
It's the same with unis though as well, isn't it? It's kind of any time you reach that sort of kind of institution, whether it's, you know, your first university experience or your first job, like, you know, my induction into my job was basically get everyone as drunk as possible. And so it's so ingrained in everything. And it does need to change.
I think a lot of people feel punished though, you know, sober people feel punished because you're kind of not always able to socialise in the same way. And many of us are very capable of socialising in boozy places without booze if the options are there. You know, there's nothing worse, is there, than rocking up and getting your plastic cup with your orange squash while everyone else has got this beautiful looking gin glass, and you're there like, you know, and I know it's changing, but I guess that's the industry the three of you are kind of very heavily involved in changing that look and changing that perception. I think it's
like in awards dues as well. It's like the choice to have something that's not alcoholic. You actually that like is a bigger deal. It's like a bigger thing because often they order, you know, wines to the table. So if you want something else, you have to get up and leave and go to the bar, and then everyone's like, "Well, where are you going? Why aren't you having this?" And it's just that constant questioning of something that shouldn't be questioned. Like it's just really wanting to normalize it to a point where we don't even need to talk about it like we are now. So that it's just not, it isn't an interrogation, you know, it's just like all the drinks are there.
I had that exact experience, Terry, a month ago. I went to an awards do and I said to the girl next to me, let's wait and see what the options are. And along it came, the orange juice came out. If you're not drinking at this awards do, there you go. You can have orange juice.
The best is when they serve it to you in a big, tall, icy glass with a straw. You're the only one there with the drinking the big soda.
warm orange juice. Great.
So, the great thing is that's all changing, right? I mean, it is.
Definitely
can see that, particularly in the restaurant business and on sale, that's changing pretty quickly. Here in the U.S., you're starting to see in the more progressive type restaurants, you're definitely seeing more options come up and people finding the options are there.
Progressive. I think it's places that care about their consumers having a nice experience, you know, because actually people come into your bar and restaurant who drink and who don't drink, and it's about catering to both of those people. Like I wasn't the only person at this awards do deciding not to drink alcohol. There lots of people had brought their cars, or, you know, for me it was I didn't want to feel not on point the next day. I had a big day at work, and I think that's the case for a lot of people. You're at these awards do till late and you want to wake up feeling fresh and kind of ready to take on the day. So it's not as if there aren't people there to be catered to, but it just feels like for a long time they've been ignored. But Eric is right, it is changing gradually, which is great.
I think it is. And while you're on awards nights, because we're up for an awards ceremony in November, and we got the menu through. I won't name them because it isn't fair, but I should, but I won't. We got the menu through, and there was literally nothing. There was not one alcohol-free option other than Coke and lemonade. And I called it out. I actually got on the phone, spoke to the hotel, and said, "Is nobody driving at your event?" You know, forget even the alcohol-free people. Is nobody driving? What do they do? Is it just Coke and lemonade? What if they want an alcohol-free? And they did put an alcohol-free drink on, but it was very, very limited. And actually, I'm quite pleased because I was so shocked. I was so surprised by this. So I think you're right. It is changing because I didn't expect there not to be options. So that shows that things are changing, I think. The fact that I'm surprised. Yeah. What about people then who are newly sober? They've chosen to go sober. So let's get back to kind of our way. We've all gone sober and we've had to navigate this world. What does somebody newly sober, because not everybody wants to announce it, not everybody has the confidence, how are they going to navigate this boozy culture? I'm glad I'm asking questions and not
It's a great question. I mean, when I got this question from you, it's really caused me to stop and think a lot about, particularly in the professional environment and what my role is in an organization as an employee and as a leader, and how I should be thinking about, from a professional standpoint, just in terms of dealing with colleagues and employees, and alcohol's role in it. And like I said earlier, we talk a lot about inclusiveness in the workplace and being respectful of everyone's wishes and desires. And, we've seemed to forget about the folks that aren't drinking alcohol. And so it's something that I believe, that there is a leadership problem when it comes to in the professional environment and alcohol. It really does boil down to a leadership issue with the people who are assuming that everyone wants to get drunk at the party and they want to drink. I think that's where I would begin, is to start talking to the leadership and saying, hey, look, we need to make sure that there's options for everyone and not just sodas for them, right? We need to make sure that they've got options that they can choose from.
Yeah, I agree. What about
I was just going to say, because I'm freelance, I hop around a bunch of offices, and so everywhere's different. Most of them have a bar inside the office, but one of them, they do like a 4 o'clock drinks trolley, and they do actually have non-alcoholic stuff on their drinks trolley. And I was so excited when I saw that, because that was kind of when I was still a bit, I wasn't announcing it. I didn't really, sometimes I wouldn't go to the pub. I wasn't quite there yet. But the fact that they had the option there, it made me feel like I could participate without being worried, like, again, without it becoming a thing of having to ask the question and out it. It was there, and I could just grab the drink that I wanted and socialize with everyone without getting anxious about it or feeling like I was going to have to answer a bunch of questions, so just simple things like that, because it isn't only people who are becoming sober. Also, there's a bunch of people that just want to moderate or really, and what I found is if I do go out for drinks with work and I order a non-alcoholic drink, sometimes people will be like, oh, what have you got there? Like, can I try it? And then they'll get one just because they don't want to feel rubbish the next day. And actually they didn't think that was an option. And it's just it's so crazy, but they just, it's not there. It's not, it's just not that obvious to everyone, I guess.
Yeah, I agree. I went to a workplace, a marketing place, and they had the Friday afternoon drinks trolley as well, and it was all very boozy. And we did this talk, and then they did actually put alcohol-free options. But it still blows my mind that even in any culture, any workplace, like, we would not take the Stellas around to surgeons or to pilots or to taxi drivers. Like, we're at work. What we're doing?
Yeah.
Like, what are we doing anyway? Forget whether we fit in or not. What we're doing anyway, this should not need to be a thing. It's just bringing Alex, something.
I was going to say, I think that's a great point around, like, you being at work, and I think acknowledging the fact that you're still at work, in the professional environment. We're there and we're doing our job. It sounds like fun and it sounds like everything else, but the reality is that we're all there. We're all working together and we're still working. And I think, when you ask folks like how to deal with the situation. For me, when I got sober, a lot of it was acknowledging the fact that, like, look, you don't want to go anymore, right? Because it makes me uncomfortable and it creates a lot of anxiety, but it's your job. You know, you work in the booze business, you got to show up. You got to walk around with a glass of wine in your hand, even though you're not drinking it anymore, right? I would do that. And literally, that's how I'd kind of hide it from folks. I wouldn't give that advice now, but like, that's what I was doing. And, you know, it's like doing the stupid report that you hate doing every week. You know, it's just something you got to do. And you go and you put a smile on and you be social and you let your guard down and you learn personal things about people. And you just got
too many personal things sometimes.
You made an interesting point there.
Oh, I'm sorry, Ellie. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying you make an interesting point there, Eric. I think around kind of you go and you kind of crack on with it. But I think also there's a lot of positives to be thinking about, kind of if you are going out and socializing and either trying to not drink too much or not drink at all. There's definitely like a lot of the positives that you can focus on in terms of, I know for me personally, it's like when I worked for an alcohol company and I would feel hungover the next day, it was like the worst thing ever. I was not productive at all. I felt horrible. I had anxiety around kind of what I said or what I did and stupid things. And it just wasn't pleasant at all. So I think if you flip that and actually go, okay, so tonight I'm not drinking alcohol. I'm going to socialize with my colleagues and have a great time. But the next day I'm going to feel great. And not have any of that regret and that anxiety. I think if you focus on that in the moment, you're kind of like, you know what, I'm really loving this because everyone else is going to feel horrible the next day, but not me.
You know, as well, what you were saying before, and it's kind of a cross between Eric and Ellie's point, it is a leadership problem and it is punitive. So if you actually do what it says on the bottle and get drunk, okay, because we know that's going to happen if it's all there and it's free, and for, you know, there's a loss of inhibitions and it's the end of the week or whatever, there's the reason to let your hair down, and then you're getting fired for it on the Monday morning, you know, for out of order behavior. Even that has to change. You know, it's up to these leaders to make sure that doesn't happen in the first place, and the only way of making sure that doesn't happen is to bring in options and to allow these environments to be changed, to make them more inclusive. Because I think you're absolutely right. If there were more awareness of alcohol-free products, and if there were more options of alcohol-free products, many people, drinking, moderating or otherwise, would choose not to get drunk. They'd make the choice. So it's the whole culture thing, isn't it?
Yeah, you made a good point earlier, Alex, about just calling people out. You know, you said it with the awards, like you just emailed them. I think a quick email or a quick message or kind of just a comment to say, actually, have you thought about people who are driving, who are pregnant, don't drink for religious reasons, don't drink for personal reasons? Have you thought about those massive groups of people? Because right now you're only catering to X, Y, and Z, and you can do that for an awards evening, you can do it for a workplace evening. And I think actually having that, whether it's like a quick email or a conversation, I mean, I know sometimes that can be a big thing, but influencing those people to actually because a lot of people do things because that's the way they've always done it, and they don't actually stop and think, well, hang on a minute, maybe, until someone actually calls it out and actually says to them, have you thought about this? They don't always think about it. So it can be something as small as that, and then kind of that helps ensure people have a great night. I mean, I realize it's not always that easy to do, but if you feel like it's appropriate, you know, HR or departments of companies, this is their job, right? This is their job. Employee well-being, making sure employees feel safe in the workplace, safe at kind of work dues and socials. So it's really their role to make sure that this happens, that there are better options out there.
I think that's a really good point as well, Ellie, about it doesn't have to be, I'm not drinking, have you thought about me? You know, it can be a third person email, can't it? We're a workplace, we should be being more inclusive for X, Y, Z. Have we thought about this? And it doesn't even have to be a big deal then. It doesn't have to be about you not drinking. It just needs to be about a culture shift and a bit of mindfulness around it.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, really good point. And I think that's probably an easier way for especially new people who are new to sobriety and who maybe feel quite insecure in that space anyway. or, you know, people who are getting sober curious and they want to kind of test the water. I think that's a really good point. Do a third person email of, look, as a workplace, we should be doing this. Where are we up to? And there's the option as well, you know, why are we in the, you know, in this year still only having large corporate events in hotels and restaurants? We don't have to have that kind of socializing at all if we don't want to do. There's loads of options, right?
Yeah. There are loads of other ways to be social at work that don't involve, you know, revolving everything around alcohol or something that is, you know, heavily involves alcohol. For sure. Yeah. Especially like, I mean, for me, I'm always more comfortable doing lunches at work with clients or colleagues, because it's more about the food, and you can call the restaurant and find out, you know, what if they do any nice mocktails and things like that, and it's just usually a lot more chilled out than anything else, where it's just like you've got a tab at a bar. What else are you going to do? That's, you know, it's already been set, hasn't it? But you could, you know, there's so many other ways to socialize at work.
Yeah, I agree. I fully agree. What about conversations as well? Because I think we've not addressed that. You know, like my staff room, for example, a few years ago was heavy, and it was a very, this is the thing, it was a very multicultural staff room, and generally very inclusive, but a lot of the topic of conversation was about Friday night drinks, was about Monday morning hangovers, was about lunch drinks, you know, the actual culture within the workplace where there is no booze. There is no booze on offer, but the chat is around it. What do you think about that?
Interesting. I say, you know, I find when I've gotten sober is that when people ask me, hey, are you having a drink? And I say, no, I don't drink anymore. And I just tell them right up, flat out. Or, you know, I'd be very open about why I don't drink anymore, and I'm not ashamed of it. I find that people find that interesting. I mean, it typically starts up a conversation and you can connect. And a lot of times I find that I actually connect with a lot of people who are thinking the same thing, but haven't taken any action on it yet. Yeah. And it can be a little bit inspiring for folks. And I've had people, you know, that come up to me afterwards and be like, hey, I thought about what you said. I think I might give it a try. Right. So don't be ashamed or be shy about dealing with any of the issues around you being sober. I mean, if you're talking to a bunch of people and they're laughing about the hangover they have or how late they were up and how stupid they were, and then you come in with your conversation around, hey, I got up early this morning and I went for a run. I mean, you don't
smashed out the gym at 5 a.m.
Don't be ashamed of that, because I think that you know, a lot of people can get inspired by that type of thinking. So don't be ashamed of your sobriety. I think it's a great thing, and everybody that I know would agree with that. I mean, there's people that make it a little uncomfortable, but when I start to talk about my journey from being a very heavy drinker for a lot of years and getting sober and how it's changed my life and catapulted me into a whole new reality, I think that is a bit of an inspiring story, and it's a lot more exciting story to tell than, hey, I got really drunk last night and did some stupid things, and, you know, we stayed up late and laughed, right? I mean, there's a lot more to it. So don't be ashamed of your sobriety.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's a really good point. What about people, so we were talking about earlier about people who are maybe curious about giving this a go and they're afraid to give it a go because of a boozy workplace culture. I'll get my words out there.
I think sometimes it can help to do things with friends, or kind of, it doesn't even have to be a friend in the same workplace, but almost it could be, you know, come on guys, let's do sober October this month, or like let's try and take a month off, or whatever it might be, or you know, I'm going to do this, do you want to try? And, you know, if you've got friends that really care about you and want to help you through this, and kind of just say, let's do this together. Because I definitely from experience and from hearing other people's experiences, I know that kind of collective effort, you almost kind of message each other when you're struggling, like, oh, I went to an event last night and it was really hard, like had a lot of people asking me why I wasn't drinking, and almost be able to share that relatability with someone else who's kind of doing that with you makes the journey and makes that process a lot easier. So I think, you know, like you said, Eric, there are a lot of kind of like-minded people out there. And actually, once you start having the conversation with someone, you generally find other people that don't drink, or people that, oh, that's really interesting, I might give that a go myself. People are naturally quite curious. So you can maybe find a few like-minded people to kind of go on that process and that journey with, and it just makes it a little bit easier.
Do you know something we do at Be Sober is we do workplace talks, and part of it is about mental health in the workplace, and part of it is about culture in the workplace, and making this shift onto offering alcohol-free alternatives, and to stop giving people the warm orange juice, and to look at different events. So we do a bit of this, a lot of this when we do it. And one thing that we offer is something called the Sober Experiment. And you just reminded me when you said, let's do Sober October together. And that is a great thing. If you can get your office all going sober, whether it be for charity, whether it be for a bit of a laugh, whether it just be, you're going to be saving someone, you know what I mean? You're going to be helping somebody in that office that's thinking, I really need a month off here. That is a fantastic idea, I think. And that's like I say, what we do. But it doesn't have to be October or January, does it? Just because these are the dates that have been named, get people on board, get all together and try it out. But it'd be nice to see some alcohol-free drinks tasting sessions in workplaces, I think.
Yeah,
I'd really
definitely.
I mean, over the last 18 months, just what with COVID and the pandemic, I think workplaces are definitely looking at well-being, employee well-being a lot more closely. And I think within that, they have to look at alcohol, because frankly, during lockdowns, I know so many people that say to me, I drank during lockdown, or definitely drank a lot at the start, and then actually some of them have gone completely the other way, and then have gone alcohol free since, because they said, I drank too much during lockdown, I didn't like it, and now I've decided to make a switch and just not drink at all. So I think workplaces within that kind of wider well-being sphere need to be looking really closely at alcohol, in and outside of the workplace, because there are pressures. We saw a lot of pressures with, having to homeschool kids and working from home. I mean, there was just so many pressures to think of, that I think it just needs to be really part of that conversation. A more obvious part is not, and you kind of see it, but I think, I don't know, there needs to be something there for workplaces. I mean, it sounds like, Alex, you guys are doing a great job in kind of spreading the word, but certainly I think
when you can get in, because they're scared. A lot of workplaces are scared, and I think this is the thing as well. The HR level and the management level are a bit afraid of addressing this, because they know that once you pop, you're going to have to address a lot more issues than just the workplace culture. There's going to be so many people, like you've just said, the blurred lines in lockdown. For some, have made the problem a whole lot worse. For others, it's been that wake up call, hasn't it? I mean, you saw, no doubt, the memes that were going around where the mum would be homeschooling 5 kids, and she'd pop the straw into the apple juice, and then she'd pop the straw into the box of wine for her. And, that was sent round. I saw that so many times in different group chats, and some work chats as well, like This Is Me, things like that. And quite frankly, it broke my heart. I actually said, it's not appropriate. I'm not frightened of doing it. That's the thing. But not everybody has a workplace where they've got someone like us willing to stand up for the little guy in the corner going, I'm sober, what about me? But yeah, I'm happy to call it out. I really think the more of us that stand up and say, this is no longer okay. We do have people who would say they are now problem drinking following lockdown, and it's been made worse or made easier to drink whenever and wherever they want because of the lack of structure in the day. Now, as we go back into the workplace, it has to be a proactive reaction to this, doesn't it? I know that kind of is an oxymoron, but it does. It has to now. We have to be proactive now as we bring people back in changing the whole culture and the whole attitude around this. I hope there's some HR managers watching this. I'd love to see some HR managers contact us.
We'll send the link.
I would say, I guess, also, to kind of to Ellie's point earlier, where she was talking about corporate, how people were doing it corporate. In this past year, I've done at least 20 virtual tastings of Spirity cocktails. So there is an interest out there, and I'm contacted by HR departments, large companies. They go online and they buy a whole bunch of my product and then ship it to all their employees. And they host a virtual happy hour. And they do that because, one, they can ship alcohol in the US. You can't do that in the US here just yet, to employees. And two, it helps with the wellness movement and where people are trying to go. So it is happening. You're definitely seeing some changes occur. So I hope we acknowledge that, it's not all doom and gloom, because there's
definitely not.
There's some good things happening.
Yeah, it's a good point. I mean, we've got Christmas coming up, and last year we definitely saw a rise in kind of businesses ordering our cocktail kits, because sending like so many Christmas gifts for employees involve like bottles of wine or bottles of spirits.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah, the Secret Santas.
Yeah, exactly. It's quite.
I still get gifted wine. I got gifted wine last year still.
Really?
From places of work.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
So
yes,
I just
stop gifting wine workplaces, please.
Really.
Yeah, I mean, loads of places do kind of, you can buy bottles now, but I think they are slowly waking up to it, because I mean, it's not like these options aren't available. They are available. So you just got to probably do a little bit of extra work to kind of make it happen. But yeah, it's definitely something on my mind, kind of coming up to Christmas, thinking I really hope that, when it comes to employee gifting, they're gonna kind of make an effort to include more alcohol-free gifts within those, as well as alcoholic.
Yeah.
Just remove the alcoholic. Yeah, why are we doing this in a workplace? Yeah, we don't need
enough booze at Christmas anyway.
And being part of the alcohol industry, and I consider myself still part of the alcohol industry, I do caution against us talking about going the other direction where alcohol is not made available to folks, right? I think that it's a choice, and we need to, when we talk about being inclusive, that also includes people who like to drink.
Absolutely.
And learning to all work and be together. And it's not an anti-alcohol message. It's a making sure that the adult social occasion, I think, is extremely important for a lot of reasons and should continue. It's just to make sure that there's options for folks, and we kill the whole feeling of if for folks that don't want to drink, that go into those situations feeling doom and gloom, that we make sure that they're welcomed and they're enjoying themselves. And I think, I don't want to kill the alcohol side of things. No. I think drinking is important.
It's like any argument, isn't it? It is like any argument that, if we start going too preachy on the don't drink side, then we actually are excluding a whole lot of people who are managing just fine, or who are mindfully drinking and doing just fine with that. It's not for everybody, but there are people who are navigating this just fine without us interfering. I think we do. I think what you said there about choice, that's our main message, right? We want choice. We want options.
It's about availability as well. I think for me, the big part of starting my company was that I couldn't walk into a bar or restaurant and know that decent non-alcoholic options would be on the menu. Yeah. And alongside my friends who were drinking craft beer, gin and tonic, like I didn't want the alcohol, and it just wasn't available. And I think it has improved vastly over the last 3, 4, 5 years. But the scales are still not even. So I'd love to be in a place where, we go out to a work stew and we're all drinking, but actually no one cares who's drinking alcohol and who's not drinking alcohol. And actually no one really knows, because whatever we're drinking all looks the same. And it's about the socialising, and it's about the coming together. And you're right, it's people have got that choice. If they want to drink alcohol, they can do, because it is readily available. But we have to make sure that alcohol-free drinks are readily available too. And that, that's, if that was down to me, I'd click my fingers. But unfortunately, we rely on pubs and bars and supermarkets to kind of open those doors for us, and they are doing that. But it's still a good few years off being where I think it should be.
And I guess I don't think Laura will mind me saying on Club Soda's behalf, they are one of the reasons that there are, one of the big reasons that there are many, many more options available in places, because, you know, she proactively goes out and makes that happen, and hence putting this festival together for us all. But what about, and let's just shift this back again now. So what about these places where it's just not, you know, it's just not available? And we do want to make that shift. And we, you know, some places aren't even going to see this. They're not going to see what's going on. So we've got the people sat here watching us at the festival, listening to our talk, and they're thinking, yeah, well, you know what? Thanks very much. It's amazing, but it's not changing in my workplace. And it's still going to be the bottle of wine for my Christmas present. And it's still going to be only alcohol or warm orange juice. And I know I've come full circle, and I know I've come back to it, but what can they do? How can they make this happen? And I'm pretty sure it involves people like you. Who's going?
Well, I think everyone's already touched on it and already said, you know, I think it's hard because you have to have the confidence to do it. And I do feel like, unfortunately, it's going to have to come from the people that want it, that want to be sober. I don't think it's necessarily coming from the people that are enjoying the drinking and thinking that it's fine for the works do. We're just going to go hire out a nightclub, you know, like then perhaps not the ones thinking about it. So unfortunately, it's working on having your own confidence within your sobriety, to get to a point where you can make those changes, where you can really make those changes. And like Ellie was saying, with just the emails, you know, or if there is something that you want to do, make suggestions for alternative socials that you feel more comfortable joining in, like breakfast mornings, something that's more focused on well-being, so you can still socialize with your friends at work, but not after hours down the pub. So, you know, yoga classes or a course or something that you're interested in that you could then bring other people into. They're all things that, you know, you're still involving yourself, but you're doing it in a way that's perhaps more comfortable. And actually other people might enjoy it too. They might then go, oh, that was great. I saw so-and-so at the breakfast morning. I'm not going to go to the pub now. I'm going to go home and spend some time with the family.
Yeah, you're so right. That's such a good point. Like doing a kind of a breakfast, like turning it on its head and actually going, why don't we do this at breakfast or at lunch? Because actually someone stood there with a pint of beer is not gonna look
hey guys, what about them?
At 9 a.m. You're there with some champagne. I don't think so. But you're right. I think it's actually expanding that beyond the pub social 8 a.m. on a Friday, whatever, actually going, guys, why don't we do something different? It's still socializing, it's still getting to know each other, but it just doesn't involve alcohol.
And also, you know, going back to the leadership thing, you know, you're asking about how do you get these places to change that haven't changed yet. I mean, if you're the boss and your corporation or firm, and you're getting ready to arrange a, you know, $20,000 banquet or a $1,000 dinner for your staff or whatever it is, and you're selecting the restaurant, I think it's completely on your shoulders to ask them not only what the wine list is and what the menu is for these folks, but to say, hey, I want to make sure that you have a non-alcoholic beer and a non-alcoholic cocktail for my staff. And if you can't do that, you don't do business with them. And I think you'll find, and I worked in the spirits or the wine and spirits business. And, you know, if I went and arranged a staff meeting at a restaurant that didn't sell the wines that my company was selling, well, I wouldn't go there. Right. I mean, and that was how we got those restaurants to carry our wines. You know, so there's a tremendous amount of influence that comes from, you know, the corporate side of things, particularly because they do a ton of entertaining, you know, a lot of business travel. So when you have the opportunity as a leader in your profession, you should insist. And I think you have those choices.
It's looking for little ways that you can influence decisions, isn't it? You know, you just got me thinking then, Eric. And this is another useful idea. When my last work Christmas do, which was a few years ago, we had I organised a 2-part, and I was still drinking at this point, by the way, about 3 years ago, and I organised a 2-part event. Nothing to do with being alcohol free. It was to do purely with being inclusive because of the people that were there. And we had escape rooms in the afternoon. And then those who wanted to went on to the bar afterwards and went, you know, even little things like that. It doesn't have to be made so obvious, does it? Just, can we do something in the day because, you know, I might need to get home for my children, or I'm driving, or what? Back to that conversation again.
Yeah. And I guess as well, what we've not said is like just saying no. You know, if you feel uncomfortable in that situation, if you feel uncomfortable going to the pub because you feel like people are going to be asking you questions you don't want to answer, then the option is just to say no. I mean, it's not, you know, in an ideal situation, yes, of course, we should all be able to go to a pub and socialise with our work colleagues. But if that makes us feel uncomfortable and, you know, anxious, and actually we're not ready, you know, it's a process, if you're not ready to do that yet, then just say no, make your excuses, and maybe go along to the next one, depending on how you feel. You know, there's nothing wrong with that.
It's that FOMO thing then, isn't it, though, you know, of like, oh, I'm going to miss out. And I think that's a whole nother kind of worms. But I think you're right. FOMO. And if you well, I get really bad FOMO, but I've learned what you said earlier, Eric, about thinking, well, I'm going to be up at 5:30. I'm going to be going on my run. I'm going to be in the gym. I'm going to be enjoying tomorrow with my children instead of nursing my poor head. So yeah, good luck with that. Enjoy it. I mean, we have this kind of little flash moment, don't we, really? And we say, oh, it was an amazing night. And what we're actually talking about is that first hour or two that was amazing. And then the rest of it was spent breaking up fights or watching people being sick or looking at possible marriage breakdowns of the future. And, you know, we've seen it, no doubt. We've all seen it at workplace events. So, yeah, there's a lot of, I think no is a really good thing. It's a very simple word, no thanks. And looking at the plus of not dragging yourself into that if it's going to make you wobble or it's going to make you uncomfortable.
What crystallized it for me was, I mentioned this awards do, you know, a month ago that I went to. It was kind of where the moment really hit me, because obviously people were there with their workplaces and their colleagues, and there were a couple of girls, one was clearly upset, crying in the toilets about something, and I just thought, if they hadn't drunk so much, that probably wouldn't be happening and wouldn't be in that situation. It just really showed like the difference between, you know, how you could approach that evening and the two completely different outcomes. And it was just a bit of an eye-opener.
I had a horrible one where I went to an awards do, and I think it started at about 5. So you get there, they have all the drinks and the nibbles, and then you sit down and watch the ceremony, and so it goes on for a long time, and then there's an after party.
They want you to get drunk, don't they? They really do.
Oh, totally. And we just got there, just walked through the door, and this poor woman, she just vomited everywhere at 5 o'clock, holding champagne, and she was still going at 9. I saw her again, and the next day that story was being exchanged, and it's like, oh, legend. No, it's like, she's a legend. And I was just thinking, and at this point I wasn't saying anything because I was just thinking something's wrong with me, like I don't want to do this anymore. What is wrong with me? So I was really thinking about my drinking at that point, but I still remember that woman. And just the fact that she was a legend, and I was thinking, no, we should have taken her home, and I just felt really bad for her. But yeah, that's what it is. Legend.
There was something recently, wasn't there? I can't remember who it was, but somebody fairly famous on GMTV, which is like a morning chat show in the UK, and he'd gone on hungover and was rendered a hero by the newspapers. What a hero. And it's like, it's stuff like that as well, isn't it, that we just need to shift the conversation with, I think. And it's genuinely not coming from a judgy point of view, because you're looking at 4 people who've all been part of this and decided to step out of it. It's not that we're saying, oh, you know, we wouldn't do that, because I know I have. I know I have, 100%. I definitely have. I think, I won't, it's not for today, but there are definite incidents where I'm thinking, are you sure that wasn't a party I was at, Terri?
I know. I think my caveat to that was I've been her as well, but on this occasion, I wasn't like mopping vomit off myself, which is nice. So,
but we've been there, and it's not very nice. Is there before we kind of bring the conversation to a close, it'd be nice to have the opportunity, if you've not added something that you think's important, and there's no pressure here because I know we have really gone into town on this, but is there anything you think we need to talk about? So back to the question of how can I navigate a boozy work environment or boozy work culture? Anyway.
Yeah, I guess so. I just thank you for doing this. This is great. And, I guess maybe I would just close with, I'll say again is don't be ashamed of your sobriety. You need to be confident in it. A lot of the feelings that you feel around being left out and being ignored are a lot of that's in your own head. And I think if you do approach the situation with, hey, this is my job, I need to be social, I need to get to know these people, and you go out and show up and have a good time without drinking, I think you'll find that the next day nobody noticed. In fact, the people that are watching you from your professional standpoint are actually really impressed that you were able to do that, and it builds trust, versus the other guy that had too much to drink and kind of fell off the curve or something and fell down. I mean, it may be funny, it may get talked about, but at the end of the day, if you're building a team of professional people that you need to rely on, who are you going to pick, right? So don't be ashamed in the professional environment to stay clear-headed and keep it professional.
Yeah, it's a good point. A really good point. Anyone else want to add anything before we close?
I would just add to that, more often than not, the people that are shouting the loudest and forcing you to try and drink or kind of shaming you for not drinking, more often than not, they're the ones with the problem with alcohol. And actually, they're using that to really mask their own kind of thing that they've got going on. So almost just remember that next time someone says to you, why are you not drinking? What's wrong with you? Well, turn it around on them and say, well, why do you feel like you need to drink? I found sometimes actually turning that question on its head and turning it around on them can kind of quite quickly silence them.
Why do you want me to drink? Like that's even more strange, isn't it? It's like, not why do you need to drink, but why do you want me to do it? I don't need to do it. You're all right. You get on with it. It's fine.
Yeah. I mean, that's really for people, because there are always those really annoying ones that are just kind of
that was me. I was that person.
The drinks pusher, Terri.
I was like, you're not ruining my drinking. Like I was that person, but that was also because I had a problem with my drinking. So I can see that now, and it's 100% true. Yeah, completely. They're the ones that need to stop drinking the most, probably.
It's a really good point. It's a really good point. I remember having that conversation of never trust a sober person. What?
Yeah.
There's something all wrong in that mindset. Yeah. They're the people you definitely should be trusting. They're the ones who have got clarity and, the confidence to actually do this, step out from the crowd. So, and I think, like you said, we just go back to that again. If all else fails, just have that conversation on somebody else's behalf. It doesn't even have to be about you. Let's look at all these people who we could be included on this night out, and we're not doing because we're not providing options. And there's loads out there, like Spirity cocktails and Caleño drinks. There's loads of things out there just to get you a mention. So I think that's brought it to a nice close. I just want to say thank you to you all for being on, and thank you to Club Soda for organising the event and for having us on as the panel. Really enjoyed talking to you all. It's been lovely to meet you as well.
Thanks, Alex. And well done, Soda.
Well done.
Thanks for having me.
Bye.
Thank
Bye.
Thank you.